My head too high? Is Matt's head too low? It's got way too much headroom.
My head is right where it needs to be.
Is it though?
Just the right amount of bigness.
Yeah, but tilt your camera down a little.
Okay, so my drink today, first ride.
What people don't realize before I pour it in,
Oh, you got the new one.
and what you don't realize is this is deeply etched. This is a phenomenal etching. It doesn't even you actually just can't even tell here. It looks like it's the frosted stuff on top. It's not.
Yeah.
That is rugged.
Oh my
and deep.
gosh.
Look how cool this is.
Yeah. Yes.
On the
Just poured
keyboard?
it on my keyboard.
There you go.
It's not
Well,
that
Matt.
I swear.
Respectable.
And welcome everyone to today's common room. Matt is starting us off beautifully.
Yeah.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Should I be checking my my mailbox?
No, because I'm trying to get you. So the backstory for the listeners and viewers, Matt kept whining that he wanted a Pilsner glass. So I sent him and his wife two of them, which you just saw. In contrast, Andrew has been complaining that he wants Imperial pints. Yeah. And so I have been trying to find a supplier that will stick our Pints with Jack logo on an Imperial pint. I have a couple of possibilities that I think might work. But that was actually one of the things I wanted just to kick off today's common room with, just talking about all of the different ways that you can drink with us. Because they have been increasing recently.
Yes.
And we've dramatically improved our game. Like, I love this company. I love.
See,
this
there's
service.
a different adjective for Imperial pint.
But like this
It's
glass
proper
here
pint.
is just better than the pint glass. I'm sorry. This just feels more fun to drink in.
It's more narrow for
You're
Matt's
such a
delicate
white
hands.
boy. Yeah.
I mean, tell me, is this not sweet? Am I just delusional? I mean, it's just.
You're delusional. It's okay.
Yeah. But yes, etched laser art. We've used these guys for years now, and we've just expanded the range a little bit. So if anyone wants to drink with us out of different shaped glasses, we have
the
a bunch
spay
more.
glass.
Mm,
Oh, I like that.
yes.
Oh, by the way, I have nothing wrong with this service themselves. They just don't provide this glass.
Yes.
Let me just clarify this. I actually really scroll down a little bit, David. I really like that one, the engraved Iona beer.
Yes, that's a beer glass, so it's quite big. It's actually my favorite one to drink out of. It's really lovely.
That was a close second with the Pilsner. Like both of those, I think are really fun. They add a bit of character to drinking a beer. Like the one to the right of it is just.
I like the rocks glass too. That looks like good for a gin and tonic. What's a spay glass? Is that for Speyside whiskey or?
I assume so. I think it was actually part of their wine group.
Okay.
I'm just looking at wine glasses. Might have been no, a little different.
Look at the
That's
whiskey
just
glass.
whiskey.
Let's see.
Oh no, no, it was one of their whiskey
whiskey.
glasses.
What does it
That
say?
is
Does it say anything
so
about it?
cool. That's actually cooler than our traditional whiskey glasses.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm looking at Google Images. I'm seeing more of them like with stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool design.
Yeah, I think so. So we've been doing those recently, and here are the other ones that we've had in progress. So this is the glass that you just saw Matt
I mean, that's
having.
sick.
We also have a pint glass coming, not an Imperial pint or
Yes,
proper
we'll
pint,
take
Andrew, but I'm working on it.
Well, I appreciate it. And sadly,
for the
almost
grand
none of the
reveal.
beers come in Imperial pints. You get 14 ounces, sometimes 16.
David, we need a little hype, a reveal. I mean, this next step has been like a passion project, which is about to be revealed.
Well, actually, hang on. Before we get there, so the company behind this, they have very kindly agreed to produce these so that our listeners, they can just order one off the bat. You just write in the details. I'll put another video out with the instructions. Or they've also got a code CSL10, and if you enter that, you get 10% off your order.
Oh,
Ooh, nice. So probably kind of like the same thing as free shipping. Yeah, by the
Yeah,
time you
basically.
start shipping. Yeah,
Basically.
nice.
Now, the other thing that we've been working on for the last week and a half, 2
I
weeks.
like the title of the photo.
David, was the CSL 10 due to the 10%, or is it CSL 10 because we're on season 10? Probably when we announced it. That's very coincidental.
Oh no. All of the things that you're seeing today are either launched or will have launched before the end of this season.
Okay.
And what we've been working on for the last couple of weeks is this beauty. So this is the shaped glass that people voted on. We polled social media and in particular our Slack group. I weighted their votes so they were higher, because if you give us money, your vote counts for more. That's democracy. Live with it. But this is the shape we're going to go for, but with our logo and this glaze.
Okay. So the bottom shape, but the top glaze and logo.
And
that's sick.
I've got 54 of those ordered. They should be delivered about the same time as my son, so in about a month.
Oh, your son! Yay!
Did we know this was a son? I mean, like we even?
That's typically.
I'm pretty sure I said, but apparently not.
Not to us.
Not to us. Little Tom Bombadil, Reaper Cheap.
Oh, that's right. That's
Rumble
right.
Buffin
Because
Bates.
Matthew Andrew Bates is what we were thinking. Yeah.
I do really love the name.
Lovely name.
Mary Margaret and I think about different names from time to time when you talk about it. Alexander is a great name.
It's a great name.
So I struggle with guys' names. I actually have in my head female names better than I do guy names.
I'll send you my file. We have a big long list, and we whittle it down each time we have a baby. And then
Is Jackson on the list?
No, it's not. Okay. No, I was sorely tempted, but I've decided I'm not going to be that guy, and I'm going to have my nods to be a little subtler.
Nice.
Okay. Have you met my daughter Lucy?
I have a friend who they had a child who passed away, and but they named him Ransom. So
it's beautiful.
Yes, his other children are Dante Emmanuel, Augustine Sage, and Ambrose James Theophilus.
Wow.
Yeah. So those boys got some living up to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, no pressure, kids. But so with this glass, we've ordered 54 of them, and we've also ordered 54 of this design. And I have definitely found that there are two kinds of people. People either go, oh, well, this one's clearly the better one, or they say the same thing with this. So we actually had one of our friends over last night, showed her both of them, and this was the one that she loved. So this is actually the mug as it will be. So this shape, this potbelly shape, and this shade of green.
Okay.
I've also ordered 54 of these, and so our top tiers will get a mug for free because they're great, and we'll just sell the rest at cost.
Okay.
And something else I've got planned.
Have we started yet? Are we started? Are we going?
The common room? Yeah.
Common
Oh, no, we're recording.
Awesome.
We're going.
Who do you think we're talking to right now, Andrew?
I don't know. We just like to talk to each other.
Just screaming out into the void.
You think David was doing a little show and tell for you?
How many ounces?
You can get them in a complete range. Actually, if I
you might want to ask Lazo Major how many ounces she wants. She'll have an opinion.
I think this is 16. This one is a little further off because Mia, the company that does it, they don't have the shade mugs that we want until the end of June. So we will be coming back with this, but they've also got a straw version as well, which we might have a short run of those. So
yes,
lots of drinking options coming up. So get excited. And if you're a top tier supporter, you'll get it for free. Oh,
go back.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm texting Lazo Major.
Oh, you want to take a picture of the screen? Okay.
Yeah.
You want this one or this one? Ooh.
Got that one. She says 24 or 32.
Wow. Okay. So she likes to stay hydrated.
She does.
I mean, look.
Yeah.
So you need these big boys.
Plus, we've got stickers for them.
Well,
I will say it's pricey, so you really can't do these unless people want to custom buy them beforehand. But Yetis are stunning when they do the laser etched into them.
Well, as long as we're flexing.
Yep, your
Are
show
we done flexing?
Yep, your turn.
Just as a reminder, listeners who are watching this is why we do this, so we flex less during the recordings.
Narnia stamps from the Royal Mail.
I can't actually see them, but that sounds sick. They're blurry.
Look, they're blurry.
Yeah. Oh, they were just maybe.
Well, I think it's actually his internet connection. It's a little degraded.
Oh, I'm starting to see them now.
Oh, there we are.
Narnia. Oh, that is sick.
So the original Pauline Baines drawings.
Yes, and the text written by Dr. Michael Ward. And then
Of course it is.
8 original Narnia stamps, 2 lions.
How'd you get these, and how much are these
They
worth?
went on sale. So
they're new. They're not like
they're brand new. Yeah.
They're not antique.
So
I
there's
assume
2
these were from the
for
60s or something.
No. There's 2 for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Narnia
See?
postal stamps.
Royal Mail.
Oh, Royal
2
Mail.
for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and new original illustrations for all the others.
Oh,
There
David,
we
you
go.
can open up.
And more text by Michael Ward.
Oh, that's cool. I love the
Isn't
Horses
that lovely?
Boy one. Yeah.
And you can get him in lots of different things. So I bought one for us to keep, and then, I'll squirrel some away. And when they get rare, onto the
David,
eBay.
I just
they'll
threw it
go.
into the chat for you. If you wanted to open it, they look cool.
Yeah,
I mean, those are sick. Actually, I hope the United States does this. I'd buy a whole bundle.
No. They've done Narnia stamps before. I have one somewhere.
That's so cool.
You can also get first day of issue canceled in Oxford. There's all kinds of
Needless to say, Narnia Web has the scoop.
Look at those bottom
they
ones.
do.
Oh, those are just like 20
just
out
great.
of 10.
Yeah.
The Horse and His Boy is easily my favorite, though. Dang. Very cool.
That was a good show and tell.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have another one. Since he mentioned Pauline Baines, I recently got this book,
Oh.
and it's actually about Pauline's life
Oh,
and
fantastic.
her art. And so I have an interview with the artist scheduled. So that will be appearing on the YouTube channel soon. And Andrew, not wanting to be one-upped, is now digging into his wardrobe of treasures. I believe. Oh, I've heard about this. Yes, I actually just learned about the existence of this.
Matt.
Yeah,
I believe the Nicene Creed. Oh, that's cool.
but illustrations by
Illustrated
Pauline Baines.
Oh, I saw that guy.
And she was also doing a version of the
Not
Arabian
all
Nights.
Greek to me.
Pauline Baines, the original illustrator of the Narnia books.
Now let me up Andrew.
And because we've got Pentecost and the Holy Ghost, the Lord, the giver of life.
Yes, she has a wonderful medieval style. Matt is showing off his
that
bookmark.
months ago, Matt. They're wonderful, though. That's Sarah, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Cheers, Sarah.
Yeah,
that is
cheers.
first edition. Great divorce.
Lovely.
I thought about ripping off the Till We Have Faces because I only want this to be the best, but I resisted.
Good. You lost less reward in heaven than you normally do.
Oh, that's all been gone. It's all grace now.
Yes, your works will be tested as through fire. Okay, well, the other thing I actually wanted to do this common room requires a brief explanation because I got invited to give a commencement speech, a graduation speech for a local high school. I will admit that their scheduled speaker, I don't know if I also say scheduled and scheduled. I've lived in America too long, so I switched between the two. Anyway, their originally scheduled speaker cancelled at the last minute, so I had like half a week to prepare. And this was actually the first time I'd ever been to a high school graduation because we don't do it in England.
Really?
And the only graduation ceremony I've ever been to was my university one, and it was incredibly boring.
We do it at every turn. Graduation from pre-K, graduation from... I graduated from aisle 3 in the grocery store the other day.
But yeah, so I had to give a little speech, and due to the podcast and parenthood, I don't write anywhere near as often as I used to. And I sat down. Well, I tried to do it before, but it ended up being my first spare evening was the night before. So I sat down at 8 o'clock, sent Marie to bed, poured myself a Lagavulin, and started to try and write. It took me hours, and I came up and told Marie, "I was like, I remember this being easier." But I had to write this graduation speech for high schoolers. And I thought that would be a fun topic for the common room. So I wanted to put it to Matt and Andrew. If you had to give a graduation speech to either high schoolers or university students, college students, what would you say? What advice would you give them?
I have a whole list.
Oh, my goodness.
Matt,
Oh,
I've been through a lot of graduations. I've played pomp and circumstance in the high school band for hours and hours and hours. And then as a high school and college teacher, I've been to a bunch of those.
Yeah, they do pomp and circumstance, and I would call it Land of Hope and Glory. So basically all very British songs that people do at American graduations. I find it endlessly funny. I don't know why. If anyone knows why that happens, I haven't really looked into it. But if you know why, please let us know.
Yeah. I'm thinking through here. Obviously, I haven't given this a ton of thoughts of hours and hours and thought through. If you only have one moment to tell a bunch of people life advice, what do you give them? So I'm not sure I'll put this as like my number one advice, but I do think this is really, if I look back at my life, one thing I'm incredibly grateful for, and I attribute it to my parents quite a bit. I think an incredibly beautiful life can come from a couple principles. And this actually probably does connect to the end of Mere Christianity and Lewis's, but from a more secular perspective, I think going on a journey that can help you form agency is like one of the more powerful things that can really help later in life with a sense of purpose and joy, more peace. And so I'd probably give a talk somewhat around that to some degree. And how do you do that? Because it is amazing when people, ask questions like that. And people in college are chatting with you. And I think one of the things that's like incredibly important for that is, have you ever heard of that concept called flow? Mm-hmm. In this case, I'm not even referring quite to the state of flow of just working, but there's also, they apply it to the concept of growth. Flow.
Can you just define that a little bit for people that don't know what you're talking about? We talk about that a lot.
You already said agency, and the kids aren't going to be packing their dictionaries at the graduation.
I would tailor it differently in the language, but
yeah.
The ideas would be this of like the state of flow when it comes to growth is one of the sweet spot they say for athletes, professional athletes, anybody is, here's your core competency right now at this stage. For students, it's going to be a little bit smaller because they're younger. There's going to be a ring around it that's stretching you. That's tough. It's scary. And then there's going to be a ring that's just like too much. Like a high schooler that just says, I'm going to go build $1 billion company with zero skills. Well, maybe don't go do that without like naivety. But there is a point where don't be afraid to go outside of what you think is your core competency. And they say if you go just enough, it's not overwhelming, but you're constantly expanding that core competency. And you'll look back 30 years later in life and you'll be like, whoa. So I guess push the limits. Don't be afraid to stretch yourself. And I think you'll be shocked with like the opportunities in life that'll pop up. All that. And then I would couple that though with a message around authenticity through a deep personal relationship with Christ. And so I feel like those two are a powerful bunch, almost like praise if everything depends on God, work as if everything depends on you. Agency is kind of like the work. It's that part of like forming that. But then you also want God to form your authentic self by surrendering and trusting. I think if you have those two combinations, I think you'll find something incredibly beautiful comes out of life.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, I'd have to tailor it down. That'd be more of like a high school or a college graduation talk. How do you make that? You use different terms, but those principles would be the two.
Well, and when you're talking about developing a life in Christ, that's when you pop out that wonderful quote from the faith chapter of Mere Christianity. Consequently, the habit of faith must be trained, right? And that's why we spend time every day in the Scripture and in prayer, and so. Neither this decision nor any other will stay in the mind unattended, right? It has to be developed. It has to be worked on. So
I remember
the first part about flow reminded me of Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, right? Growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
I love
how you respond to failure, right? Is failure an opportunity or is failure a referendum on how terrible you are?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, those are other little sub points all related to that. I mean, I remember the very first time I watched Steve Jobs give a talk and he was like, the sooner there's going to be an aha moment for everybody when you look around yourself and you look at all of the things, you look at the technology, the lights, the walls, and you realize the people that did these are no smarter than yourself. Like these aren't, the sooner you realize these aren't super geniuses, they've just either been willing to push themselves. They've been willing to take the pain. They've been willing to take risk or chances, but they're not like, there's not something where they were born with some 190 IQ that taught them how to just be a business person. And so when you realize that, then you realize you can be that person and you can start affecting change and just having agency in the world. So I've always loved that idea.
That's great. What about you, David? What did you do?
So in my talk, I basically based it around my pilgrimage across Spain, so the Camino de Santiago. And I use that as my heavy-handed metaphor for journey, since they are now leaving one chapter of their journey and moving on to the next. And I told some stories of some things that happened along the way, with basically an emphasis on the people that you meet along that journey and how you should treat them, particularly when you don't know what's going on inside them, what their journey has been up until now, and what baggage they're carrying. Yeah. In particular, I told the story of when I met a guy who was walking the Camino, whose sister had leukemia, and the family had bought her an iPad so she could watch Netflix while she was receiving chemo. And she watched The Way, which is a movie about the Camino, and she got all inspired. Yeah. And she said, okay, once I beat this, you and I'll go walk the Camino. But here I am at dawn with just this guy by himself. And he says, I'm taking her ashes with me to Santiago. So I use that as my sort of framing device. And Matt, I actually quoted you. Or rather, I quoted what other people have said to you. It's like,
how many Lagavulins in were you?
It was several. It was several at that point. Actually, no. It was an ad hoc comment. It wasn't actually something that I'd written. But I told the story of how whenever you got up to give an announcement or share anything at church, your friends would say, "Okay, Matt, limit it to 2 C.S. Lewis quotations." And I actually did better than that. I only did 1 C.S. Lewis quotation, but I did the weight of glory about you have never met any mere mortals.
Yeah. That's good.
But
I actually don't.
But that was my talk, and it's funny because we once a week at my work we have all of our product team, all of the engineers, and everyone that's related to the product. We have an icebreaker, and the system that gives us our icebreaker question wasn't working, and so the CTO said, "Does anyone have a suggestion?" And so I gave this question, and when I was giving that answer, I didn't give the graduation speech that I gave before. But one of the things I said is, if you are angry and you want to write somebody, text somebody, email somebody, or call somebody, sleep on it.
Yeah.
Then do it again. then maybe think about it.
24 hours.
Yes, at least it's a good idea. But two extra bonus ones that I would give, following up from some of the things that Matt was saying. And Andrew is, it's needless to say, some Lewis advice, namely about the pursuit of virtue, because that's the thing that drives everything else. Particularly if you want a good marriage, become a good person.
How did Father Lazo get that?
I know. It was before you were married, Matt. Don't worry. I'll do you a version.
Yes.
But the other piece of advice that popped into my head was one of my favorite Lewisian ones from one of his letters. And he said, "If I had a piece of advice to a young man about a place to live, I should say, sacrifice almost everything to live where you can be near your friends."
He writes to his friend who lives across the sea.
He went back regularly. But just to emphasize the point that it's who you surround yourself with will very much shape what your life looks like and the sort of person that you are. Absolutely. And become.
I probably would have tried to work in the quote, "Give up yourself and you will find your real self. Lose your life and you will save it. Submit with every fiber of your being and you will find eternal life. Keep back nothing. Nothing you have not given away will be really yours. Nothing in you that has not died will ever be raised from the dead. Look for yourself and you will find in the long run only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay. But look for Christ and you will find him, and with him everything else thrown in." Was this a Catholic school or a Christian school?
Yeah, it's Catholic classical school.
Then I probably would have framed, my framing would have been this story that I've always loved of the beggar that's on the street when the king comes by and he's gotten no rice for the day.
Yes.
I don't know if Andrew's heard this one. So he's got
You've told it on the podcast, but tell it, it's a good one.
Yeah. So this beggar's on the street, and he's been begging all day, and just has been very unfortunate and not had a lot of success. And he sees a procession coming down, and he sees a procession with the king, and he goes, "This is my chance. This is my last chance of the day to get some sort of food, some sort of scraps, something." And he's at this point he's gotten 4 pieces of rice, and so the king comes by and sees him and gets off his procession and comes up to him and says, "Sir," he says to the beggar, "Sir, how many pieces of rice do you have?" And he goes, 4 pieces. And he goes, "Can I have them?" And the beggar is very confused, and he has no idea. But of course, this is the king, so he's like, "Sure." And then the king takes them, goes off, and the beggar is just literally thinking to himself, "What just happened? Now I have nothing." And then as he's kind of packing up, he puts his hand in and kind of notices that there are 4 gold pieces. Oh, wait, sorry. The whole thing hinged on one other thing. He had 8 pieces, and he said you could have 4. And so as he's finishing up, he's going to grab his 4 that are left that he did not give the king. And he feels in there something heavy, and he realizes there's 4 gold pieces. And he thinks to himself, if only I had given him everything. And it's that analogy, when you get to the end of this life, don't give God half, because he will give you everything back.
Yes.
And then
nothing
some.
we haven't given away will ever be raised from the dead.
Yeah.
Right.
So that might be the framing, that they do a little bit of the story, then dive in. I don't know.
I think you're ready, Matt. How about you, Andrew?
I have 4 bits. The first bit is not advice.
I'll take
for
2
graduation. Yeah. Well, that's how many. You only want the 2 gold coins? Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. That was the joke.
The first bit is not advice for high school or college graduates, but for speakers, and that is nobody's listening. How many of us can remember our graduation speeches that anybody gave? And so the kind of thumbnail is: be brief, be funny, be gone. And then I always think too of something my bishop said to the clergy. He said, "Listen, as you preach, remember that we have more than enough of good advice. People got more good advice than they can deal with. They can give themselves good advice all day. People are not hungry for good advice. They're hungry for good news. They're hungry for good news. And so I try to focus on the good news of salvation, of forgiveness, of God's unconditional love for us. And that's rather than giving people a list of things that they ought to do. They're already coming in with their own lists that are way too long. So the other thing I would say actually to the students, I think is Jerry Root points this out, and somebody at his high school graduation from Whittier College in Southern California gave him the advice that as you graduate from from college, the reason why they call it commencement is because everything is about to begin. It's not an ending, it's a beginning. And when people graduate from college, their brains still haven't fully developed. The upper cortex doesn't finish until 25. And so they're just kind of equipping themselves for the kind of advice that you were talking about, Matt, and flow and things like that. And so somebody challenged Jerry at his commencement to pick a life author, an author that would journey with him throughout life. And that's when he picked Lewis as his life author. And we see what's happened. So, so commencement, it's the beginning of something, and pick a good author. One of the things that struck me a few months after high school is, nobody cares about your tassels or what color your tassel is on your cap and gown, and how many of the cords and the stoles and whatever. There's all of this hype as you graduate, and then 3 months later, nobody really gives a flying rip about any of that, and so then it becomes time to settle down and turn all the hype into hope. And it reminded me of Lewis speaking at the beginning of World War II to students at Oxford. So this is from Learning in Wartime. Yes, it's a British first edition of Transpositions. And he talks about the enemies to learning, especially when there are difficult things happening, like a pandemic, like a war, whatever. He said the first enemy is excitement, the tendency to think about the war or fill in the blank when we had intended to think about our work. The best defense is a recognition that in this, as in everything else, the war has not really raised up a new enemy, but only aggravated an old one. There are always plenty of rivals to our work. We are always falling in love or quarreling, looking for jobs or fearing to lose them. Amen. I'm in the middle of all of that. Getting ill and recovering, following public affairs. If we let ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end before we can really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge, or whatever it is, fill in the blank, who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come. And so that's so helpful to me. That's part of why, as I'm working on my dissertation with Diana, she's like, look, a little bit every day. Writing is like taming a cat. Every day, a wild cat. Every day, a little bit, will get you there.
I feel that very personally. I have been owing Joseph Weigel a forward for his book, Planet Thulcandra, out later this year. I've been owing him that forward for a couple of months. And I kept trying to find that perfect time when I'd just have like a good chunk of time, like most of a day. So I could, read a little bit of his book, reread a little bit of That Hideous Strength, because that's what it's about. And then really sort of, think long and hard. And it's just like never happened, particularly as soon as you have children. These times never, ever, ever happen. Yeah. So it was literally like 2 days ago. It's like, this is never happening. I'm just going to just stay up until this thing's written. And then I edited it over a couple of days when I wasn't quite so sleep deprived, and I stopped quoting Matt. But yeah.
Have you used Gemini?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I have some new. I have. This coming month we've got Narnia month, and the final episode on that in that series is about inklings and ecology. And I interview someone who has moral objections to artificial intelligence. So I'm not going to say any more, but that could possibly be a topic of discussion next Combo.
Lovely.
Bring me into this dialogue.
Oh, no. I will. And sorry, Andrew, I interrupted you.
Yeah. No. So the last thing I would probably say to students, even though they may not hear it, but it may lodge. Some of my greatest moral battles were at 5:30 and 6:30 at night, long after the school day had ended, grading a stack of terrible papers and getting that one student who had been just nasty to me all semester and who had never done good work. And they actually did B+ work, or B- work. And I would strive to read through to look for ways to give them a C instead of a B. And the moral courage it took to go, you know what, they deserve a B. I'm going to give it to them, even though I really don't like them. And then conversely, my favorite student who gave me lovely Christmas gifts and was never a problem, who would do B work, and I would struggle to give them an A. And so the kind of, it's what Wordsworth calls the little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love that make up that best part of a good man's life. I would say to students, remember your teachers. At some point in the future, think back and reach out and say, hey, thank you. Thank you for this thing that you did. And easy with your favorite teachers, but sometimes your best teachers are not your most favorite. I got an email a couple of years after a kid, flunked my class and fell out of his chair every day. And just, he was a nightmare. His mother said, please forgive my good for nothing son.
But he knows not what he does.
He knows exactly what he does. But a couple of years later, I got an email from him and he said, hey, I'm so sorry that I was such a screw up. I just taught my entire fraternity how to write a paper thanks to your class. And so go back. The teacher is worthy of the rewards. So I would say just pop that in your head at some point to go back and reach out.
And also, if you give your teachers gifts, you might get bumped up a point, half a point, who knows? And
it's
funny,
a little fudge factor.
It's funny. Your story reminded me of something I'd completely forgotten until just then. I was 12, 13, 14, something like that. And I was it was the end of year. We'd done our end of year history test. And our teacher actually said, he said out loud in front of the class to one of the students who had come first. He came first, I came second. He says, I went back to your paper trying to find a way to mark you down a little bit more because you have been a horrible student to teach and I didn't want you to be first. But to my mind, is like, mate, you did it wrong. You shouldn't have gone through his paper to try and mark him down. Go through mine and mark me
and mark it up. There you go. I imagine he might have as well.
David.
No, I was an excellent history student. All of my grades were earned. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, Matt, do you need to give me permission for whatever you just shared?
Oh, I just did.
Okay,
David.
Cheers.
Overall score, 9 out of 10. This is an excellent forward that is engaging, insightful, and effectively sets the stage for Joseph Weigel's book on the history. It achieves the primary goals of a forward. It introduces the subject matter's complexity, establishes your credibility as a forward writer, genuinely praises the author and their work, and entices the reader to delve into the main book. My suggestions are mostly minor and aimed at refining an already strong piece. Loves your opening, articulating the challenges of reading Lewis, effective introduction of the guide, authentic personal connection and endorsement, appropriate tone and style, highlighting the book's unique contributions.
Wow.
I didn't even get Gemini an end of year present or anything, and it's still giving me a top grade. Okay, so for people that haven't guessed what's happened, Matt has taken the forward that I wrote for Joseph's book, fed it into Gemini, and asked it whether it's any good.
And just so you know, like for people who don't use these tools, as long as you prompt them properly, they can be incredibly effective. So like here I said, be critical. I don't want flattery because you need to tell it that because you're like, this will be bad for me if you don't actually give me objective advice because this is going out there. So it literally actually starts switching to trying to be critical. So the fact they gave you 9 out of 10 is quite good.
Actually, the one thing that I would suggest is avoid to be verbs. Is, am, are, was, were, be, being, been, become, exist. Mm-hmm. And if you ruthlessly go through and eliminate those, not Joseph is, but Joseph proves himself to, and so especially if there's passive voice, but I used to limit my students with the to be's. Is, am, are, was, were, be, being, been, become, exist. And they were only allowed no more than 2 per page. But it forces you into stronger verbs, and that forces you to better writing.
So Hamlet asks the question, and Father Andrew Lasso gives the answer. Not to be.
Well, if you're Shakespeare, you're fine. If you're not, you may want to work on that.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, it's been a lovely time. Everyone else, please join us again next time. Bye.
Cheers.